just to get your attention, all right? So, how many of you knew that according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, of the 10 fastest growing career fields, 5 of those require a 2-year degree or less. And then 2 of those require a master's degree. So the point we're trying to make with this statistic is that a 4-year college route is not the only route. It should not be the only route that everyone in here is considering. The next fun fact is, at the end of each graduating year, we ask the seniors to fill out a senior survey. And very consistently, about anywhere between 60 and 68% of seniors at the very end of their senior year, when they have the best idea of what they're going to be doing the following year, between 60 and 68% of them say that they're going to go on to right into a 4-year college. That means that 32 to 40% of the seniors are doing something other than going directly into a 4-year college program. That might be a 2-year program, a technical program, a certification program, military, going right into the working world, an apprenticeship, a gap year. There's a lot of different options that are available to students. And we want to recognize that. A lot of what we're going to be covering today is going to be focused a little bit more on the college application process, just because that process is, number one, it applies to about 60 to 68% of you in here, and number two, it generally has more steps, and we want you to make sure that you have all of the information to get started with those steps as soon as you're ready to do that. The last fun fact, for those of you that have started the college application process and maybe are stressing out a little bit about the college essay, is that the topic is not nearly as important as the perspective and the voice and the viewpoint that you give to that topic. So I was watching a little blog about some student got accepted to Harvard while writing about being chunky peanut butter in a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So obviously it wasn't about the topic that caught the attention of the review committee, it was how that student wrote about that topic. And I know a lot of you are stressing about that based on some of the conversations that we've had in our offices the last couple days. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do, and this does require a phone or a Chromebook of some sort, is just probably 15 minutes ago, I sent an email link to a survey to all senior students. It's a very short survey. It should take you 1 minute or less to complete. And what it's going to do is give us as counselors just a good snapshot of where each of you are at right now. Because I guarantee you that you're all at a very different point in your process of planning for life after high school. And it's hard for us to be able to help you as an individual unless we have an idea of where you're at right now. So if you can just quickly go to your email, it should be one of the top emails in your box. Click on the link for the Fall Senior Check-In Survey. And there's 4 questions, but you won't even have to fill out all 4 questions depending on how you fill out the first one. Is there anyone that needs more time to do that? Were you all able to find it? Okay. Perfect. Okay, if you need more time, just continue doing it. I'm going to move on with the rest here just so we get out of here in time. So the next slide on the screen just acknowledges that there are options after high school. Very different from high school. In high school, you're all working towards the same diploma, and that diploma requires the same graduation requirements for each of you. Beyond high school, you have many different options, and they all look very different in terms of how long of a commitment those options are, what the end product is in terms of a degree, a diploma, a certificate. Some of them are going to require an application process on the front end, some are not. Some are going to cost money, some are not. So we just broke it down into two columns here. Basically, there are the options that are going to require an application of some sort. That would include 2-year, 4-year, public, private, technical colleges. And then on the right-hand side are the options that are not going to generally require a college application. Still very reputable options, but there's a different process to get into those options. And that process is going to be very individualized. And so if you are looking at these options right now and thinking, actually, I probably fit more into some of those options listed on the right-hand side, there may be some information today that doesn't apply directly to you. We would just encourage you then to make sure that you're reaching out to us as counselors individually so that we can still be a resource and help to you as you make your plan for after high school. Basic overview of senior year. Probably the easiest way to chunk this in your mind is to think of it in a first semester, second semester time frame. First semester, so right now, your main focus should be on finalizing what your plan is going to be for after high school. So that might include gathering information to see what all the different options are, starting to narrow down those choices, and then starting the process of qualifying for whatever that plan is that you want to do after you graduate from high school. And we acknowledge that you're all at very different points with that right now, and we're going to try to give everybody resources that each of you can use. The second semester then is really about finalizing that plan. So it's about making a decision. Let's just say 2-year college is what you're going to be doing, but you had 2 or 3 choices that you were considering. You're going to have to make a final decision about which one of those colleges you're going to enroll in, and then make sure that you take all the steps so that you can, in fact, go and do that after you graduate from high school. So again, as you're thinking about not only where you're at right now, but also where you should be moving toward, this first semester should be gathering information, finalizing what your plan is going to be, and then starting to take the necessary steps to put you on the road to that plan beyond high school. In terms of gathering information, there's a lot of different ways. For those of you that are sitting here thinking, I really don't know, I haven't narrowed down my choices, I'm not sure where I want to apply to college, if that's the route that I'm going to go with things. These are the resources that are going to help you to start to gather the information and narrow your choices. So first you have online resources. Hopefully most of you still remember the tool called Naviance that we have introduced to you before. It's a college and career planning tool that each of you as students have access to. You're able to access Naviance right through your Clever account, so you don't even need to remember what your login information was for that. But there's a college search tool on Naviance, there's a scholarship search tool on Naviance. You're able to like certain colleges and kind of set up a portfolio to help you organize what your choices are. If there's one good thing that came out of COVID, it's all of the online resources that the colleges have implemented through their individual websites. So if you haven't already been on a college website, to the admissions tab to kind of see all of the different online tools that they have available to you to gather a bunch of very useful information about their school without even having to go and visit, I would encourage you to do that as a starting point. Campus visits are opening up again. Those of you that are excited to get onto a campus to kind of have a real experience and see whether or not it's going to be a good fit for you, many colleges are doing this. MEA break in general is a good time for seniors to get out and schedule some of those college visits or take advantage of that opportunity. We also have college reps that are coming back to the high school. We kind of took a year off from that, but we have area colleges that actually send reps to come right here to the high school to meet with you, to give you information, to answer questions that you may have. It is a very low-key kind of environment, a very easy way to get some information and answers without having to go through the process of setting up a tour or worried about having to have a whole list of questions ready for them. They come to you, they present the information, and they answer questions that you have. Mrs. Lobby pushes out that information in a lot of different ways to students, but if you see a college that's of interest to you, you just need to go to the guidance office to get a pass, and then you'll come down and meet with them in the guidance conference room. We also, that second to last bullet point up there I think is really important. I think it's easy for students to dismiss this one, especially students that are stressed or overwhelmed about the idea of having to make this big decision. And that is just having conversations with adults in your life, people that you trust, people that know you well, about what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what your options are, what you learned when you went on a campus visit or met with a college rep. It's basically your time to start processing some of that information and making sense of it in a way that's going to be most meaningful to you. Don't avoid those conversations. In fact, initiate those conversations with parents, family members, teachers, coaches, advisors, really any adult in your life that you trust. And then the last one up there is a hyperlink to the National College Fairs. I'm actually going to go to the next slide. Just to give you an idea, so it used to be that there was a big National College Fair that came to town, to the Minneapolis Convention Center in October, and sometimes we'd bus students there, sometimes you'd go on your own, but it was just a big gathering of college reps, and you could go around and get information from the ones that applied to you. Well, they have gone virtual with that last year, and they're continuing that this year, and it's actually a great resource. There's many different ways that you can get information through the virtual college fairs. So if you choose, you go in and you register, and then you identify the colleges that you're interested in, and you basically can go set up like one-on-one chats with them or meetings with them so that you can get your questions answered. There's also just general educational sessions that you can sign up for and take advantage of. And then there's college pre-recorded presentations that they push out to students or make available to students. So if you were to click on the hyperlink in this presentation, it brings you to the website that talks about all of the virtual college fairs that are in the area. So they have some that are a little more specific, like the top one is for Northeastern US colleges, but then there's just general college fairs as well. If you click on any one of those, it's going to bring you to a list of the colleges that are going to be present or accessible through that virtual college fair, along with a list of all the live sessions that are available as a part of that. So if you guys, if you're playing around with this and you think, wow, this might actually be a good way for me to get a lot of information at once, all you need to do then, there's a blue register button that is there. You'll want to register to attend that college fair, and then you'll be able to kind of set up your schedule in the way that's going to make the most sense based on the colleges that you want to get information from. All right, so now I'm going to move into the college application part. It used to be that we would say there's three main parts to just about every four-year college application. We've crossed that out because, as most of you already know, for the class of 2022, the ACT is not really considered a main part anymore. We're going to go into more detail on each of these three components in the slides that are coming up, but basically, there's an online application that you will need to complete, and there's actually a couple different options or formats of college applications that you can choose to use. There is some version of a high school transcript. It used to be that most colleges said it has to be an official high school transcript. Some colleges have loosened a little bit on that, and they might let you self-report that information, or they might accept an unofficial copy of your transcript, which all of you have easy access to through your Skyward account. And then in some cases, they still require an official high school transcript. So we'll go over some of those details a little bit later in the presentation. And then again, as far as the ACT scores go, I don't know of many colleges that are requiring ACT for admission purposes. I think most of the colleges are considered test optional, meaning that you can choose to send the scores if they're available and you want them to be considered as a part of your application. And then there are some that are called test-free. What is it?
Blind.
Test blind, which means that you can submit the scores, but they're not even going to look at it for admissions purposes. They may look at it for placement, class placement purposes after you've been accepted, but they aren't even going to consider it as a part of the application process. So in terms of college applications, just out of curiosity, how many of you have started a college application in here? How many of you have submitted a college application already? Okay, perfect. And how many of you that did that used the Common App? How many used an institutional application? All right, so we have a little bit of everything in here, just as we would suspect. So with college applications, most colleges are going to offer you options. Most colleges they will accept the Common Application or their institutional application. So the Common Application is one general application that you can use to apply to several colleges if those colleges accept that Common Application. So basically there's one general part to the application that you only have to complete once. And then as you add the different colleges to your Common App account, each college may have some additional information that they need you to provide, but they won't ask you to go back and resubmit that general application. That's all a part of the Common App, which is why it's called that. What I would say about the Common App, just because I think that is becoming much more popular for most students, is once you have your Common App account set up and you've added some colleges to that Common App account, as counselors, we're going to ask you to go under one of those colleges, under the FERPA and Recommenders section, and we're going to have you invite your counselor. It's something that you're going to have to do at some point anyway. The earlier you do it, the earlier we have access to the necessary forms that we have to submit on your behalf. And I think in general can just be a better resource for you if we know kind of where you're at in the process and what your plans are. So for those of you that are sitting in here thinking, I set up a Common App account, but I don't remember, I didn't invite my counselor, I don't remember even being asked to do that. It's kind of hidden, and it's hidden under that FERPA and Recommenders section under one of the colleges. You only have to invite us once, and we ask that you use our westonka.k12.mn.us email address, just because that's the email account that we have our Common App account set up under.
One thing I quickly forgot, we are your counselor, we're not your advisor. So sometimes students choose to, when they go in there and you add a counselor, they add someone, they say name a title. Our title should be counselor, not advisor. It's just an easy mistake that is often made, but it won't allow us to complete the form we need to do. So choose counselor.
Correct. And you'll notice when you do that, when you go under each individual school, it's going to list what their specific requirements are. And as counselors, we will be submitting for sure one document for every student and maybe a second. So there's something called a secondary school report, which is required of all colleges, and that's completed by your counselor. So when you add us as your counselor, we're going to have access to that secondary school report. We're going to send that to every college on your list. Some colleges, in addition to that, require something called a counselor recommendation. That's basically our letter of recommendation. If you are applying to colleges that require a counselor recommendation, even if only one of your colleges on your list requires a counselor recommendation, then we're going to ask you to pay attention to this last point here, and there's a form called the MWHS recommendation form. It's available on our website. It's basically just a quick little resume of what you've been involved in, and a couple other questions that help us to write a more complete recommendation about you. So we would ask you to complete that form and submit it to us so that we can use that to complete the counselor recommendation if that is a requirement for any of the colleges on your list. If you're not going to be using the Common App, if it doesn't make sense to use the Common App because you're applying to 3 schools and only one of them accepts the Common App, then you likely are going to be using the institutional application, which is specific to each college, and it's found on the college website. So you'll go to the college website, and usually there's a big, huge Apply Now button somewhere on there. You're just going to click on that Apply Now. They'll have you set up an account, and you're going to submit your application electronically directly through that college website. The requirements for institutional application might be a little bit different than that same college if you apply to that same college using the Common Application. So it is a good idea to get onto the websites and kind of start the application process so that you can see what each entails and make a more informed decision as to which is going to be the better route for you. And then in the lower right-hand corner, I do just bring up the Coalition application. That is another version of a Common Application. It's much less popular. I think a couple years back we felt like maybe it was going to grow in popularity and become a little bit bigger, and it just hasn't. So it's there. We're happy to answer any individual questions that you have about it, but I would say 99% of the students are going to use either the Common App or the institutional application. We've kind of already touched on this, but there are some colleges that require something beyond your application, your online application. And so this is where you're going to need to plan ahead a little bit. If your colleges are going to require a counselor recommendation or a teacher recommendation, you're going to want to research sort of what that looks like and how you're going to be entering that information so that you can talk about that with the person that you're going to be asking to write the recommendation for you. Generally, it's all an online process. So basically, you type in an email address and that generates, it kind of triggers a communication to that teacher, coach, or advisor that says, so-and-so is requesting a recommendation from you. So you'll want to have a conversation with that teacher, coach, or advisor prior to entering that email address so that's not a surprise to them, and so that you know for sure that they're willing to write a recommendation for you. So I think you do two things before you enter any recommender email in an application. One, you have a conversation with that person to make sure that they're willing to do that for you. And two, you supply them with a completed copy of that MWHS recommendation form so that they also have additional information to be able to write a complete recommendation for you. As you can imagine, there are some teachers, coaches, and advisors that get hit really hard with requests to do this. And this is something that they're all doing outside of their normal teaching duties. So please, please plan ahead with these. Get on the websites, look at what the requirements are, kind of work a backwards plan to know when you're going to need it. And I would say at the very least, you're going to want to give teachers, coaches, or advisors at least 2 weeks to write a recommendation for you. So if there's a deadline, make sure that you're planning far enough in advance that you get them everything they need, including access to that recommendation form, with 2 weeks to spare minimum before they would need to have that in. And then because everyone's putting in extra time and going above and beyond to help you with this process, make sure you do some form of thank you to them afterwards. Anything you would add about recommendations? All right, so sending high school transcripts. It's a little confusing because sending transcripts looks a little different depending on what type of application you're using. If you're applying to all of your schools using the Common App, you will not need to do anything more to request that your transcript gets sent. That is a part of the secondary school report that we fill out as your counselor through the Common App only. Okay? So if any school you're applying to through the Common App, they're going to automatically get a copy of your official transcript through our process as long as you've invited us as your counselor. If you're applying to any colleges not using the Common App, so using their institutional applications, then there's a process through Parchment that you're going to need to use to have your official transcript sent to that college. It's an electronic delivery service. It works perfectly. But basically you go in, you set up an account, you identify where you want it to be sent, that triggers a notification to us. We then go and upload your most recent transcript to that Parchment account, and then it becomes immediately available to the college on their end. Okay? So if you're applying to colleges not using the Common App, you will need to use Parchment in order to request your official transcript. I actually would encourage, we went through some of this information with you last spring and encouraged you to set up a Parchment account back then. Hopefully most of you did. if you did not, I would encourage everybody to set up a Parchment account this fall, because even if you're applying to all of your schools through the Common App, and we send your transcript as a part of that on the front end of things, at the very end of the year, all colleges are going to require a final transcript, and there's no way to do that through the Common App. So at some point, everyone in here who's going to a college that requires a transcript is going to need to have a Parchment account and make that request through that Parchment account. So on the front end, we'll take care of it, but on the back end, we're not able to do that. So it's wise to go in and set up that Parchment account. Couple pieces of advice there. I recommend that you use an email other than your school email, because your school email gets deactivated on June 30th each year. And if you use that as your primary email for this and you need to send a transcript the next fall, you can't recover your password very easily because you no longer have access to that email that you've put in. So I recommend you set it up with a personal email, or use your school email now and remember at the end of the year to go in and edit that to your personal email.
But I would make that advice for everything. I would use your personal email for your college applications, for scholarship applications. You know, if you don't have a good professional personal email, now is a great time to set one up through Gmail or something like that. But really, kids run into a lot of issues with that email ending in June and then not being able to access their stuff once they leave here. So you'd be surprised how many times you need to go back to there. So.
Yep. I'm going too long, but two more things. We don't have access to your username and password for Parchment, so make sure you write that down or take a photo or somehow record that somewhere. And just know, when you initially set up your Parchment account, a copy of your transcript at that point gets loaded onto your account, and that's the only one you're ever able to see through your account. But that is not what gets sent through Parchment. Every time you make a Parchment request, your most recent transcript gets uploaded by us. So don't get fooled by that. That always causes confusion for students. I'm not going to go into the ACT stuff in any great detail because it doesn't really play into college applications the same way it has in the past. You can ask individual questions of us as your counselors.
I would just say that about ACT though is that every one of you have a report of your spring ACT you took here in March stored in your Skyward account. That's something we just started to do. So let's say a college is looking for a placement test, or you do want to submit a report, or oh my gosh, I lost my report. It is stored in your Skyward, the same place we find your report cards and stuff like that. So it's kind of a nice little amenity that some of you have now. I'm going to quickly go through the next few things and try to be pretty quick here. Ms. Campo was supposed to give me 18 minutes to go through this. She gave me 9. So thank you. So a few quick things I just want to talk to you about. One is just a fall opportunity to get started on your applications if you haven't. Whether you're going to go do a training program, a 2-year program, or a 4-year program, there's a great opportunity coming back up here in October. And then I want to talk to you quickly about paying for college, and I'm sure that's on many students' minds. College is expensive, so expensive. So we want to make sure that your college is a good value. It yields a career that will then make that money worth it, and also that it's a way that can be affordable for your family. And then lastly, we'll just quickly talk about your timeline over the next 9 months or so and what you guys can do moving forward. So just quickly, the state of Minnesota always does this great event called College Knowledge Month, or now it's called Minnesota Goes to College. But they get a bunch of colleges on board to offer you free applications during the month of October. So starting usually the 1st of October all the way through the 31st, students are allowed to apply to several Minnesota schools without any application fee. And I'm not sure if any of you know this or not, but application fees can range from like $25 to like $75. So this is a really great way for you to change or to save a little bit of money just by even waiting to submit until October 1st. So we really encourage this. The link to that, the list of colleges is on this presentation, which we're going to share with you. But go click on that link and see if the college that you're applying to is going to waive that application fee in October. That'd be a great way to save a little money. Tell your parents you did that for them. Another thing that we're doing in prep for College Knowledge Month is that we're offering the next 2 weeks, Win 2 sessions. We are offering just help sessions down in the English area. So it's Win next week and you don't have anywhere to go because you're killing it in all your classes and your teacher you want to see is full. Sign up to come see us so that we can just sit down with you and walk through specific steps of this application process that we're not hitting in this presentation. All right, so college costs, let's just talk about that a little bit. It's not just the tuition, right? It is the room and board, which can be killer, right? Books and supplies, and then personal expenses, things like
laundry or your phone bill or anything like that. Those are all the things that go into the cost of college. So when you get a financial aid package, it will also consider those things as well. It doesn't mean you'll be getting free scholarships for everything, but it might mean that they might include that in your loan equation or something like that. The main way to apply for financial aid is through the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the federal form that everyone uses to develop an equation based on your family income to decide whether or not you qualify for financial aid. The website is down at the bottom of that, of this slide right here. It'll be in the presentation. But the most important thing you should be thinking of right now are two things. One is that it opens on October 1st. It used to not open until January of your senior year, and they think it's so important for your decision making to know how much money you might get for college or how expensive college might be for you, that they've changed it to opening up in October. So we really encourage you to talk to your family when you leave here. If you're going to be planning on getting some additional help for college, talk to them now so that you're ready to roll on October 1st. The rest of the information we're going to kind of just skip over there. I'm going to skip the video.
If you're interested in financial aid for college,
Watch this video on your own. The other thing I want to talk to you about financial aid is, one is get your family ready. A great way to get your family ready is that we bring in a financial aid expert into this building, into this room in a couple weeks. So on Monday, September 27th at 6:30 p.m., we are doing the financial aid night. I think it's a really, really great thing for you guys to come with your family, with your adult in your life. The reason that is that it really shows them that you want to understand this process as well and that you're taking the cost of college seriously. Because I assure you, the adults in your life are taking the cost of college very seriously as well, because it is expensive.
Ms. Bauman?
Yeah.
Is that night just for applicants that are looking for financial aid based on family income or also merit?
Yeah, it would not be, they'll discuss merit aid just a little bit, but primarily about the FAFSA process, which is not merit-based. Speaking of, there are 3 different types of financial aid. One is actually through the state or federal government. It's part of our loan process or the grant process. The other is what is called institutional aid. And institutional aid can come in a different way. It can come via a sports scholarship. It can come via merit. So if you have a certain GPA or a certain ACT score, you can also get a scholarship for that. They also equate your need into it, but that money wouldn't be coming from the government typically. It would be coming from the actual institution, the place where it exists. Then lastly is private aid. It is like private scholarships that you might apply for or things that you might apply for through a church or an organization. It's mostly based on merit or community service, and it does require individual applications. I'll talk to you a little bit about that in just a second here. So scholarships is what we're talking about with that private money. Our local scholarship program. And if you've paid attention to this school in the past 4 years at all, you know about our local scholarship program. It's one of the biggest in the West Metro without question. When you're based on how many students. A lot of our students get a lot of money. How much last year, Ms. Campbell? Like over $400,000?
Yes.
Yeah, it was given out to just the senior class last year for scholarships. And those packages range from $250 to $30,000. And so it's a very rigorous process, and it has a lot of depth to it, and we're excited to share it with you. That process for local scholarships doesn't start until February. So you can ask me a million times, and I'll a million times respond to your email saying, it's going to start in February. However, there are some national scholarships that are eligible to every student in the United States that you might be looking for and applying for right now. So one way you can do that is by looking at those websites at the bottom, but a great place to start is also looking at whether or not you belong to a church, whether or not your dad's company or mom's company offers something. Maybe grandpa's a Knights of Columbus and they give out a scholarship to grandpa's grandkids for that. Those types of more broader scholarships are kind of open right now all the way until the spring. So that's something that I would just take a look at and talk to your family about right now. All right, timeline. All right, I've got 2.5 minutes. Awesome. Timeline right now, what we're looking at right now is really starting to narrow down your choices. If you are not choosing an option that requires an application, this is a great time to talk to a military recruiter. Talk to someone in a union of a job that you want. They might have training opportunities that you can start right now even. But now's the time to really dig into finding out. If you need a connection with someone, we'll try to help you find that, 4-year college-wise or job-wise, either way. Between MEA and spring break, so MEA is kind of our first marker for college applications being due until spring break. What you want to do is make sure your applications are submitted. I start to get nervous if I see a student hasn't submitted an application if they're planning on going to a 4-year school by Thanksgiving. That's where I start to panic a little bit. There are deadlines way beyond that, but we really want you to kind of work on that right now. Searching for national scholarships should happen between now and spring, and then just researching like the institutional money that's available. It's not always guaranteed that you will get institutional money just by applying. Sometimes you need to complete a separate application to get money from that school. So you should be doing that research by looking at the financial aid page of a college, and then the actual application as well. A great example of that is St. Thomas requires an additional application. The University of Minnesota considers you for everything just by applying. During spring break, after we come back from spring break, you're going to want to renew your financial aid packet, review them, make sure that they are affordable and something that you want to move forward with. You want to confirm your enrollment and your housing at colleges, which usually requires 2 different deposits. You're going to send your final transcript by using Parchment. Everyone will use Parchment for that one, so we're not attaching it to the Common App for that one. So you'll send a final transcript to the college that proves that you graduated. You'll have to do that through Parchment. And then we're going to go ahead and ask you a little bit of questions about where you're going to land after you leave here. If you are not going to do an application process, you want to make sure that you are getting ready for a start date or a deployment date or an enrollment date in a training program after you leave here. If you have a job ready to go after you leave here, just make sure that you're ready for that job and the hours that it's going to require, and asking those questions ahead of time. If you need help, this is the last one. I'm going to, holy cow, the last one. If you need help, a couple things. No matter where you are in the process, we're happy to help. Everyone is all over the place in this process, so we're happy to help you with the most basic question or the most detailed question. We'll kind of work with you on it. The more you ask us, the better we get at our jobs too, because we have to find that information if we don't know it. So you can always email us for an appointment, or you can go see Miss Labby in the guidance office and she'll set up an appointment for you with us. Don't forget about those 2 win sessions the next 2 Thursdays where you can just do a walk-in and we can sit down and look at applications with you or any other questions you might have. That'll be posted early next week for you to sign up for. And then the last thing is like, we can't know everything about every college, but there are people who spend a lot of time knowing everything about every college. And I have fallen in love with 2 resources that I think are really, really great. One is the College Essay Guy, who is on Instagram. He does great brainstorming around college essays, really takes it to a new level. But follow him on Instagram, I think he's really, really great. His name is Ethan Sawyer. The last one is the Admissions Maven. She's also on Instagram. And she's also got a pretty robust TikTok account, and she hits a lot of topics about specific questions that I bet many of you have. All right, so quickly, you guys are going to take all of your things and you are going to go